Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Oh, this one's going to be a fun one.
It is. I've got some really interesting excerpts here from 1919.
Oh, wow.
It's Paul Kammerer's book, Das Gesetz der Serie,
Okay.
which,
I don't speak German. What's that?
yeah, for those of us who don't speak German, it's the law of seriality.
Okay.
And it's all about these kind of uncanny, recurring events that happen
Yeah.
and kind of make you wonder if there's more to coincidence than just pure chance.
And you know, what's really interesting about this is the timing of this book.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 1919,
Yeah.
Europe is just coming out of World War I.
Right.
It's a time of just huge intellectual upheaval.
Right.
Like everybody's questioning everything.
Yeah.
Traditional scientific thinking, is being challenged left and right. People
Yeah.
are searching for new ways to understand the world.
Yeah.
And Kammerer, with these ideas about seriality, he really taps into that, I think, that like yearning for a different perspective.
All right, so let's unpack this. Let's get into the law of seriality.
Right.
What exactly did Kammerer mean by that?
So at the core of it,
Yeah.
Kammerer was convinced that all these like repetitions we see in everyday
Yeah.
life, these similar events that repeat,
Yeah.
they weren't just like random flukes.
Yeah.
He was seeing these patterns where other people just saw chaos.
Yeah.
He argued for like this universal force
Okay.
driving all these repetitions.
Wow.
And he even compares it to like inertia in physics.
Oh, interesting.
Right, like suggesting that there's momentum to events.
Okay.
But instead of applying it to like physical objects,
Yeah.
he applied it to like broader happenings and even human behavior.
So he wasn't just talking about dropping toast butter side down 3 times in a row.
No, this was much grander.
Okay.
He saw this force everywhere,
Yeah.
from the tiniest particles to the biggest societal shifts.
Okay.
And to try and get a grip on all these repetitions, he made this whole system for classifying different types of series.
Okay, so that's where we get into all the cool examples, right?
Right.
He talks about identity series,
Mm-hmm.
where you encounter the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
I read about this anecdote.
Yeah.
He talks about 2 men, both named Richter, both sick,
Wow.
end up in the same hospital.
What are the chances?
Right. What are the chances? Like, it's like something out of a movie.
Well, that's the thing about all these stories, right?
Yeah.
They like tap into our like deepest fascinations with the seemingly impossible, like
Right.
these things that we just can't believe would actually happen.
Right.
But they do.
Yeah.
And Kammerer is using them to illustrate
Yeah.
how seriality can show up in the most like unexpected ways.
Right.
Really challenging our assumptions about randomness.
Yeah. Okay, so then we've got analogy series. So
Right.
that's similar, but distinct events.
Right.
So if you hear the same song in different places
Yeah.
throughout your day,
Right.
even though you haven't heard it in years.
Oh, yeah. It's like the universe is trying to tell you something.
Right.
Like,
Is this a sign?
right.
What's going on here?
Well, and that's precisely what Kammerer was trying to get at.
Okay.
He argued that these weren't just coincidences,
Right.
but they were reflections of a deeper pattern.
Yeah.
It's at work.
Okay.
And it is interesting to think about
Yeah.
the psychological impact of that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the human brain is wired to find patterns.
Right.
So when we see these improbable repetitions,
Yeah.
it can really trigger a sense of wonder
Yeah.
or maybe even a little unease,
Right.
make us question
Yeah.
if we understand reality at all.
Right. Right.
It's almost like those optical illusions that like trick our brains
Yeah.
into seeing stuff that isn't really there.
Right. Right.
I mean, our minds are constantly trying to make sense of the world around us.
Yeah.
And sometimes those efforts can lead us down
Yeah.
some pretty interesting paths.
Okay, so besides identity series and analogy series,
Yeah.
what other categories did Kammerer come up with?
Well, he also describes contrast series.
Okay.
And this is where opposites
Okay.
keep recurring.
Okay.
So like picture this. You open a window
Yeah.
and then someone slams it shut like right after.
Oh, okay.
Or you're having this deep conversation
Right.
and it just gets cut off abruptly, that
Yeah.
jarring back and forth.
Right.
That's what Kammerer saw as like another aspect of seriality.
So it's not just things repeating exactly.
Yeah.
It's those contrasting elements that mirror each other
Exactly.
in a way that almost feels...
Well, like it's orchestrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, was that just bad timing?
Yeah.
Or was it seriality at work?
Right.
It makes you think twice.
And then to complete the set, we have alternating
Right.
or cyclical series.
Right.
So I thought this example was really interesting. He uses a sparrow
Okay.
And the sparrow keeps dropping food, and it either falls through the cracks or lands perfectly on the surface.
Oh, wow.
So it's just back and forth and back and forth.
It's like this tiny little drama playing out, right?
Right. It's like,
You know, that back and forth that Kammerer was talking about.
yeah. So what's so fascinating about that example is
Yeah.
he's finding evidence of seriality in, like,
Yeah.
the actions of a bird.
I know, like, even in this random,
Right.
seemingly random behavior of a bird, he's finding these patterns.
Right.
You know, it really emphasizes his commitment
Yeah.
to finding these patterns
Yeah.
everywhere.
And keep in mind, he was writing this.
I was going to say,
At that,
before we had the technology
Right.
to analyze data.
Right, like we do now.
Right. So all this was based on, like, his meticulous observation.
Right.
Documentation.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty impressive, if you think about it.
Yeah, it speaks to his dedication to trying to prove his theory.
Right.
But I'm also curious,
Yeah.
how were these ideas received at the time?
Well, I mean, he was pushing some pretty bold concepts.
He was.
Right.
Yeah, he was walking this line, you know? He tried to ground his ideas in scientific concepts.
Right.
You know, like probability theory, the laws of physics.
Yeah.
But his conclusions went way beyond what mainstream science was really accepting at the time.
Right.
So, you know, you had some people who were just fascinated,
Yeah.
you know, praising his originality.
Right.
But then you had others who just dismissed him completely.
Right.
Said, this is pseudoscience, you know?
So he was on that tightrope
He's on a tightrope.
of, like, scientific rigor,
Yeah.
but also, like, bold speculation.
He was.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like he was a detective trying to solve a mystery
Yeah.
that no one else believed existed.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And speaking of mysteries, let's get into some of those
Let's do it.
intriguing anecdotes from the book.
Yeah.
There's that story about the doppelganger,
Okay.
right?
Where those two men shared so many uncanny similarities,
I know.
it caused quite a stir.
It's like, you know, how does that happen?
Yeah, I want to hear more about that one.
Yeah, well, it's a great example of how seriality
Yeah.
can challenge our ideas of,
Yeah.
you know, who we are as individuals.
Okay.
Kammerer was clearly captivated by doppelgangers,
Okay.
and he collected all these stories
Yeah.
about people who not only looked alike,
Yeah.
but also had similar experiences,
Okay.
and sometimes even similar fates.
Wow.
He even documents his own experience
Yeah.
of repeatedly running into someone who reminded him
Yeah.
of another person he knew.
So it's like seeing double in real life.
Yeah, it's a little eerie, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there's all these examples of musical repetition.
Oh,
He
yeah.
talks about, right?
Uh,
It's one thing to hear like a song you know
Right.
on the radio,
right.
but if you keep hearing the same melody
I know.
throughout your day,
Yeah.
just like seemingly by chance, that would make you stop and think. Like,
Yeah, is something strange going on here?
yeah, like what is going on here?
Well, he documented all these cases
All right.
where people reported hearing the same musical piece
Yeah.
like over and over again
Yeah.
in totally different situations,
Right.
sometimes even played by different instruments or sung by different people.
Right.
And he argued, you know, this wasn't just coincidence.
Yeah.
It was the law of seriality,
Right.
you know, at play.
Yeah.
And I think it raises some interesting questions
Yeah.
about how our brains
Yeah.
take in information.
Right.
You know, are we just noticing these repetitions because
Yeah.
we're, like, primed to look for them?
Right.
Or is there something more going on?
Where is there like
I don't
a
know.
force?
Yeah, like orchestrating these
Yeah,
events.
frustrating these events. Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's almost like our minds are playing tricks on us.
Yeah.
Or maybe, like Kammerer said,
Yeah.
the universe is playing a game and we just don't know the rule.
We don't know the rules yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so then he also talked about, like, these strange encounters
Okay.
where people keep running into
Yes.
specific types of individuals
Yes.
on certain days.
Like he gave this example about a person
Yeah.
who kept seeing people in mourning clothes.
Right. Right.
You know, that's a pattern you wouldn't forget.
Yeah, that's not something you just forget.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I think is so interesting about this is
Yeah.
he's connecting these, like, seemingly random encounters
Yeah.
to a larger pattern.
Right.
He's suggesting that there's, like, an underlying force
Uh-huh.
shaping these experiences.
It's not just coincidence. He's
Right,
saying
right.
there's something more to it.
And this brings us to, like, another key aspect of his work,
Yeah.
which is the impact of seriality
Mm-hmm.
on our lives.
Well, in our lives.
Right.
Right.
He doesn't stop at just observing these patterns.
No, but he goes on to explore how these repetitions
Yeah.
actually affect us.
Yes.
Psychologically.
Psychologically.
And even behaviorally.
Right. Like, it's not just about spotting the coincidence.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how it might be affecting us.
Right.
Our thoughts, our feelings, our actions.
Right.
And that's where it starts to get really personal.
That's where it gets personal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because we've all had these days
We all have.
where it feels like
Everything is going wrong.
everything is going wrong, yeah.
You're just stuck in a rut of bad luck.
Right.
Yeah. Could Kammerer's theory offer a different way
Right.
to look at those experiences?
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And that's something that we'll dig into even more
Okay.
as we continue our deep dive.
Right.
You know, Kammerer really believed
Okay.
that seriality
Yeah.
can shape our lives in really profound ways,
Right.
both positive and negative.
Right.
And by understanding this force, he argued,
Yeah.
you know, we might be able to gain
Yeah.
like a new level of awareness
Okay.
and maybe even
Yep.
agency
Yeah.
in how we navigate
Right.
the world around us.
Okay, so we'll save that.
But we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, we've laid the groundwork here
We
for
have.
understanding Kammerer's law of seriality.
Right.
And you've got the concept itself,
Yeah.
and then all these vivid examples he used.
I know, they're so great.
Right.
Yeah.
To illustrate that it's in our everyday lives.
Uh-huh.
But I'm already like itching to know more
I know.
about how this theory
Yeah.
actually applies to our lives.
Right.
And how we might be unknowingly influenced by these forces.
By these forces of repetition, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll pick up next time.
All right.
We'll explore those more personal implications of Kammerer's work.
Okay.
You know, how his ideas can challenge how we think about randomness, what insights it might give us about coincidences, making decisions.
Yeah.
Even that potential for shaping our destinies.
Wow.
So stay tuned because things are about to get really interesting.
All right, we'll be back.
Okay, so picking up where we left off.
Okay.
Let's really get into how Kammerer thought this law of seriality actually like impacts our lives.
Right, because so far it's been fascinating,
Yeah.
but also kind of like, okay, so weird stuff happens in clusters.
Yeah.
So what? Does it actually matter?
Right, and that's where Kammerer gets really interesting.
Okay.
He doesn't just stop at observing.
Okay.
He actually explores
Yeah.
how this awareness of seriality could change how we make decisions,
Oh, okay.
even potentially avoid bad outcomes.
Hold on, is he saying we can, like, predict the future with this stuff?
Not quite like fortune telling,
Okay.
but he uses this analogy of a sailor, right?
Okay.
A good sailor adjusts their sails to use the wind,
Right.
even if it's not blowing exactly where they want to go.
Okay.
So similarly, Kammerer is suggesting understanding these patterns might help us navigate those challenges.
Okay, I can see how that's a little more empowering.
Yeah.
Instead of just feeling like, oh, I'm just getting hit by random events.
Right.
Like maybe there are clues, trends we can pick up on.
Yeah, and he actually tries to use math and probability theory
Oh, okay.
to demonstrate that these series aren't just chance.
Right.
Now, whether his calculations like hold up today,
Yeah.
that's debatable.
Yeah.
But at least it shows he was trying to like bring some rigor
Yeah.
to his observations.
He wasn't just relying on anecdotes.
Right.
He wanted to have the numbers, too.
Exactly.
But I gotta say, even with the math, it does seem like his work has really resonated with, like,
It has.
those folks who are into, like, the occult and paranormal.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, his book,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a cult classic
Yeah.
in those circles.
Right.
Because the idea that there's like this hidden order
Right.
that's controlling our lives.
Yeah.
It's very appealing. If you're
Mhm.
trying to find meaning,
Right. Right.
you know, it's like it gives you a framework
Yeah.
for understanding
Right.
all those things
Yeah.
that science can't easily explain.
Right. Yeah, which makes me think of, like,
Yeah.
premonitions and omens and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Did he get into any of that?
He did.
Really?
He saw premonitions
Okay.
as a type of analogy series
Okay.
where an event seems unrelated,
Right.
but then later you see, oh, it foreshadowed something.
Oh, okay.
You know, he gives examples like certain insects appearing before a war
Right.
or a specific bird call being an omen of death.
Wow. So he's really weaving in, like,
Yeah.
the folk beliefs and
Yeah.
superstitions.
Into this big theory.
Right. Which also makes me think of, like,
Yeah.
talismans, lucky charms, all that stuff
Oh, yeah.
that people use to try and, like, you know.
Right. Influence their fate.
Yeah.
He definitely saw those practices
Yeah.
as attempts to, like, influence seriality,
Okay.
to kind of, like, harness its power for good luck.
Right.
He suggested carrying a certain object
Right.
or doing a specific ritual
Yeah.
might create this favorable environment.
Right. So it's like we're not just observing these patterns.
Yeah.
We're trying to participate.
Trying to shape it.
Right. And like shape it to our advantage.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, did he ever talk about like
Yeah.
the flip side of that?
He did.
Really?
He called it like anti-serial behavior,
Oh, okay.
where we might be unknowingly like messing up a good thing
Right.
by our own actions.
Oh, okay.
So, he argued that understanding seriality
Right.
could help us identify
Right.
and break those patterns
Okay.
that are self-defeating.
So it's not just about like attracting the good luck.
No.
It's about avoiding the thing.
Avoiding the actions.
Right.
That might mess up.
Right.
That
Yeah.
good flow.
It's like a serial form of like self-awareness.
Yeah.
Um,
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Paying attention to
Yeah.
how our choices are feeding into these bigger patterns.
Exactly.
But Kammerer didn't just look at individuals, did he?
No. He also looked at how this plays out on a bigger scale.
Okay.
He talks about mass imitation
Okay.
and how that drives trends and even historical events.
Right.
He saw seriality as this force shaping everything.
Wow.
From fashion cycles
Right.
to like the rise and fall of empires.
So it's not just about like personal luck or coincidences.
No, this is big.
This is woven into
This is
society
true.
and culture. Wow, that's mind-blowing.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of culture,
Yeah.
did he look at all how language...
might be affected.
He delved into linguistics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Looking at patterns and how words repeat,
Right.
how they shape
Yeah.
your language over time.
Right.
He even talks about this idea of unestiudul.
Which are words that originally had one meaning,
Okay.
but then over time,
Yeah.
they end up including their opposite.
Wow.
It's like he's saying
Yeah.
that even the way we think and communicate
Right.
is shaped by this idea of repetition.
Right. So maybe there's something inherently serial
Yeah.
about how the human mind works.
Maybe.
Right.
It's a fascinating thought.
But Kammerer wasn't just like a philosopher
No.
and a linguist.
Right.
He was a biologist too.
It was.
Right.
Yes.
Did he see connections between seriality and the natural world?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He saw so many parallels
Yeah.
between these repeating patterns in nature
Right.
and what he saw in human life.
Right.
Think about like the stripes on a zebra
Right.
or the spots on a leopard.
Yeah.
Those are like manifestations
Yeah.
of seriality in the animal kingdom.
So it's not just a human concept.
No, it's everywhere.
He's saying it's like this fundamental principle
Yeah.
woven into the universe.
I know. It's like,
From tiny organisms
Yeah.
to huge cosmic events.
right.
Right. And it makes me think of like
Yeah.
camouflage in nature, right?
Yeah.
Like animals that mimic their surroundings.
That's almost like biological seriality.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
That's a great thought.
So all those stick insects that look like twigs,
I know.
the butterflies that look like leaves,
Yeah.
they're all part of this like grand dance of serial imitation.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how nature
Yeah.
uses repetition and adaptation.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder,
Yeah.
did he ever connect this to evolution?
He did.
Really?
He saw seriality as a potential force
Okay.
behind those similar features we see
Oh,
across
right.
different species.
Yeah.
He even suggested that natural selection itself
Wow.
might be influenced by seriality,
Okay.
favoring those organisms with traits
Okay.
that are already kind of common.
So it's like there's serial momentum
Yeah.
that's shaping the direction of evolution.
It's wild, right? That's wild.
Yeah.
So it's not just those random mutations and
Yeah.
survival of the fittest.
No.
There's also this element of,
Repetition.
right, repeating patterns,
Yeah.
building on what's already there.
Exactly. It's almost like there's some hidden blueprint
Yeah.
guiding the development of life.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
he wasn't just looking at the physical world,
No.
right, with this.
Yeah.
He also looked at, like,
He looked at the mind,
the
the
psychological
psychological and social aspects.
and social aspects of
Yeah,
things.
he was really fascinated
Right.
by social contagion.
Okay.
You know, how ideas, emotions, and behaviors can spread.
Right, like wildfire.
Yeah, so rapidly through groups.
Right, so that's like seriality on a societal level.
Exactly.
Right,
He saw it as this manifestation
right,
driven by our like innate tendency to imitate each other.
right. So those viral trends that
Mm,
just sweep through culture.
Yeah, those social movements that capture everyone's attention.
Yeah. They could all be.
They could all be seen as seriality in action.
Right, and it makes me think of
Right.
like those copycat crimes
Oh, yeah.
that happen sometimes,
Yeah.
right? After a big event.
It is a disturbing thought.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, is that a darker side
It could be.
of serial imitation?
It aligns with what Kammerer understood
That's-
about mimesis.
Yeah.
He believed that. Like,
Yeah.
our tendency to copy
Right.
could be good or bad.
Right.
Shaping not just what we do as individuals,
Right.
but also the course of history.
Right. So even those seemingly random acts of violence
Yeah.
might be influenced
Could be.
by these patterns.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, it adds another layer
Yeah.
of complexity
Yeah.
to understanding human behavior.
Right. It's not simple.
All right, so let's explore another area where Kammerer saw this at work.
Okay.
He was a man of many interests. Right.
Yeah.
He got into art and aesthetics as well.
Oh, he did, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he loved exploring creativity
Okay.
and how it might be influenced by seriality.
Okay, so what did he have to say about that?
Well, he looked at tons of different art forms,
Oh, wow.
from music and literature
Yeah.
to painting and sculpture.
Okay.
Just looking for those patterns
Yeah.
of repetition, symmetry, thematic recurrence.
Right.
And he believed that these weren't just like
Hey.
stylistic choices, He thought they were reflections
Right.
of a deeper principle.
So like recurring motifs in mythology,
Yeah.
symmetrical designs.
Yeah.
In buildings,
Exactly.
repetitive rhythms in music.
All of that.
They could all be
Manifestations of seriality.
right. It's like art is just a mirror
Yeah.
reflecting the serial nature of reality.
Exactly. He even suggested
Yeah.
that the creative process itself
Okay.
might be driven by like this serial urge,
Okay.
a subconscious desire to impose order
Okay.
and repetition
Yeah.
on all the chaos of experience.
It's like he saw artists as like serial conduits.
Yeah, like they're channeling
Yeah.
these universal patterns into their work.
Right. Right. And it makes me think of like those artists
Mhm.
who create those pieces with like the intricate repeating patterns.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Like those mandalas
Yeah.
or those hypnotic optical illusions.
Right, right.
Right.
Could those be like pure expressions,
Could be.
a serial impulse?
I mean, Kammerer was definitely
Yeah.
drawn to symmetry and repetition in art.
Yeah.
He saw it as like a fundamental element
Okay.
of beauty. He even suggested
Yeah.
that like our appreciation for those patterns
Right.
might be biological,
Yeah. Right. So it's not just an arbitrary preference. It's
Oh.
something deeper.
like a deeper connection to those symmetrical structures we see
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
everywhere in the natural world.
Our love for those balanced compositions
Yeah.
and the repeating melodies.
It could be a reflection of our connection to this serial order.
Right. But his ideas about art weren't just about like aesthetics. Right. He
right.
also explored the psychological and
Yeah.
emotional impact.
He did. He believed that certain patterns and variations in art
Okay.
could trigger
Yeah.
specific emotions
Oh,
in the viewer
right.
or the listener.
Yeah.
He even suggested that, like
Yeah.
some art forms, especially the ones that are really repetitive and hypnotic,
Right.
might be able to like induce altered states of consciousness.
So those trance-inducing chants,
Yeah.
right, or those rhythmically pulsating dances.
Yeah, you find them.
Right.
Yeah.
In lots of cultures.
Yeah,
Those could be intentional uses of seriality
they could be. Yeah.
to manipulate our states.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, but his exploration didn't stop there.
No, it kept going.
Right. Did he look at what we might call, like,
He did.
found art?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, he was always looking for serial patterns.
Yeah.
In everyday stuff.
Right. So not just traditional art.
No,
Really?
like even the way things were arranged in a room
Right.
or the way events happened in a day.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that's
Yeah.
art too.
Right.
It's unintentional.
Right. But it's still art.
Yeah.
So it's like he's seeing the world as this giant art gallery.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
Right.
And-
With like masterpieces
Right.
and these like,
Accidental compositions?
accidental compositions that
Yeah.
just grab our attention.
Yeah, and you think about
Mhm.
like those photographers who capture beauty
Right.
in those everyday scenes,
Yeah.
the way the shadows line up.
Yeah.
Or you get a reflection
Yeah.
just perfectly.
Yeah.
Could that be like serial photography?
Yeah.
Capturing those moments where randomness meets order.
Right. Right.
I love that idea.
Right. It's beautiful.
It is.
And it aligns with Kammerer's view of
What?
this, like,
Subtle interplay,
right.
chance and design,
Right.
in the world around us.
Right. It reminds us that even in the most, like,
Yeah.
mundane parts of life,
Yeah,
there's beauty and meaning there.
there is.
But we've talked about that darker side, too.
Right.
Right.
The potential for negative patterns
Yeah.
and harmful repetitions.
Right. Did he have anything to say about, like,
Yeah.
breaking free from those?
He did. He said that
Okay.
awareness of seriality is the first step.
Okay.
You know, he believed that once you recognize
Yeah.
those patterns that are binding you,
Right.
you can start to break free
Okay.
and make choices that interrupt those negative repetitions.
So it's like a tool for self-empowerment almost.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
Break free from the habits and the limiting beliefs. Did he have any, like, specific strategies for this, though?
He had a few.
Okay.
One is to just be more aware,
Okay.
pay attention
Yeah.
to those patterns in your life.
Right.
Those recurring thoughts, emotions, behaviors,
Okay.
the things that might be holding you back.
Right.
He also said, like, try breaking the pattern,
Okay.
Intentionally,
Yeah.
changing things up,
Right.
disrupting those routines.
Right.
That might be making things worse.
So it's about being more mindful of, like,
Yeah.
the serial forces
Yeah.
at play,
Right.
and then taking action
Yeah, conscious action
to shift them.
in a positive direction.
But how do you know which patterns are good and which are bad?
Well, he talked about discernment,
Okay.
recognizing the difference between repetitions
Right.
that are like life-affirming,
Right.
those that are like draining you,
Right.
And he believed that
Yeah.
by understanding ourselves better,
Right.
we can start making choices that align with,
Yeah, our value.
our values.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we're becoming serial curators,
Yeah.
choosing which patterns
Yeah.
we want to keep.
We want to keep and the ones we want to let go
And the
of.
ones you want to let go of, exactly.
But as we're navigating this,
yeah.
it's important to remember
Yeah.
that Kammerer's work isn't like
Um,
a self-help guide.
No, it's more like a framework
Yeah.
for exploring.
Right. Exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
So as we explore this dance
Yeah.
between chance and order,
Right.
we might find that the law of seriality,
Yeah.
while not a
definitive answer.
like a final answer,
No.
it offers us
a valuable lens.
a lens to view all this
Your
complexity.
complexities of our existence. Yeah.
It's a reminder
Yeah.
that even in a world that seems random,
Uh-huh.
there might be a hidden order.
There might be.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe.
As we learn to read the language of seriality,
Right.
we can appreciate those patterns.
Those patterns that connect us all.
That connect us all, yeah.
It's pretty grand when you think about it.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
Okay? Because
Yeah.
we've talked about all this cool stuff,
We have.
but we also have to acknowledge that Kammerer's work
Yeah.
has gotten some criticism.
It has. It's been controversial.
Right. So let's get into that.
Let's unpack those criticisms.
What were the main arguments against his theory?
We'll do that next time.
Okay.
We'll look at those counter-arguments,
Okay.
the potential flaws,
Okay.
and how his ideas might be viewed
Yeah.
through the lens of modern science.
Right.
It's important to be critical.
Right. We're not just going to blindly accept
Right.
everything, right?
We have to evaluate the evidence
Evaluate the evidence.
and form our own conclusions.
Yeah, so get ready for some skepticism.
Yeah, get ready.
Because we're going to put the law of seriality
Under the microscope.
under the microscope.
We're going to look at the good and the
Some
bad.
strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I got to find that balanced perspective.
Right, and who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll uncover some even more.
Intriguing questions.
Yeah.
About how the world works.
About the nature of coincidence.
Yeah.
Pattern recognition. This dance between...
Chance and order
Yeah.
in our lives.
All right, so we've spent a good chunk of time now diving into Paul Kammerer's law of seriality.
All those weird patterns and coincidences. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's like a hidden hand at play or something.
Yeah, definitely intriguing stuff.
But we also hinted last time that not everyone was exactly buying into it.
Right. Lots of folks had some pretty strong objections even back then.
So let's unpack some of that criticism.
Yeah, let's get critical.
Okay, what were some of the main arguments against Kammerer's theory?
Well, one big one was his reliance on anecdotes.
Oh, those stories, yeah.
Yeah, like they're great for capturing our attention,
They are fun.
but critics argued that they don't always hold up.
Yeah, scientifically.
Right, scientifically, they could be explained by what's called confirmation bias.
Oh, yeah.
Our tendency to notice stuff that already fits our beliefs.
Like you see what you want to see.
Exactly. If you're convinced there's a pattern,
Yeah.
you're going to find evidence, even if it's just random.
Right, like if I'm looking for red cars,
Yeah,
suddenly I see red cars everywhere.
exactly. And then on top of that,
Yeah.
People pointed out that, like, his math,
Oh, right. He tried to use probability.
he did, but critics argued it wasn't that solid.
Oh, how
They
so?
said he didn't always account for all the different factors
Okay.
that could be influencing these supposedly unlikely events.
It's like trying to predict a coin toss
Yeah.
based on, like, only flipping it a few times.
Right, you might get heads 5 times in a row
Right. And think it's rigged.
and think the coin is biased.
But if you flip it 1,000 times,
Yeah.
it'll probably even out.
Exactly. It was just random luck all along.
Okay, so the anecdotes were suspect.
Yeah.
And the math wasn't airtight.
Right.
What else?
Well, then there's the whole concept of serial inertia itself.
That was his big idea, right?
Yeah, the force driving repetition.
Right.
But Kammerer never really explained how it worked.
Oh, so like saying things fall because of gravity,
Yeah.
but not explaining what gravity is.
Exactly. You're describing something,
Right.
but not the cause.
Okay, so a bit of a gap there in the theory.
Yeah, and some critics even accused him of, like, cherry-picking his examples,
Oh, wow.
choosing the ones that fit.
And ignoring the ones that didn't.
Exactly, which is a pretty serious charge.
Yeah, like he was manipulating things to fit his narrative.
Right, makes you wonder if there was some unconscious bias there.
Yeah, like he wanted to see seriality.
So badly.
That yeah. Even if it wasn't really there.
Right.
But to be fair to Kammerer,
Yeah.
he did acknowledge some limitations.
He knew this was all still in early stages
Okay.
and needed more research.
So he wasn't saying, this is it, I figured it all out.
No, more like, hey, here's a new way to look at things. Let's keep digging.
Right, which is how science works, right?
Exactly. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah, always refining, revising.
Yeah, even the most groundbreaking ideas can change.
As new evidence comes in.
Right.
And so even with the criticism,
Yeah.
there are people who think Kammerer's work is worth revisiting.
There are, especially in light of newer scientific fields,
Like what?
like complexity theory, chaos theory.
Oh, right. The ones that look at how order emerges from chaos.
Exactly.
Like fractals.
Yeah, those intricate repeating patterns.
Right. They come from pretty simple equations.
Right, and they show that order can arise
Yeah.
from seemingly random processes.
It's like a snowflake.
Beautiful, yeah.
You get this intricate design.
Right.
But it's from water freezing, which seems chaotic.
Yeah, maybe there's a deeper order.
Then we can see at first glance.
Right. Right, exactly.
So even if we don't fully embrace the law of seriality,
Yeah.
I think Kammerer's work is a good reminder
Yeah.
to be open.
Open to the mysteries.
Yeah, to question those assumptions.
Question what we think we know.
That might be limiting us.
Right.
It's like embrace that curiosity.
Be open to those weird coincidences.
Yeah, the repetitions.
Yeah, maybe they're telling us something.
Maybe there's a connection we're missing.
Right, exactly.
And maybe that's his most important legacy.
Yeah, that invitation to look deeper.
To question randomness.
And to consider that maybe there's a more intricate order
Than we can grasp.
than we can fully understand.
Wow. So even if we're skeptical,
Yeah,
his work still gets us thinking
it does. It makes you pay attention
to those coincidences.
to those uncanny repetitions.
Things that pop up in our lives.
It's a reminder that the world's full of wonder and mystery.
Yeah. And maybe those mysteries.
Show up when we least expect it.
When we least expect it, yeah. Well, it's been a fascinating dive. It has been.
Thanks for taking us through it.
Yeah, thank you for being our guide through this exploration of Paul Kammerer and his law of seriality.
It's been a pleasure.
It really has. And for our listeners out there, keep your eyes peeled for those patterns
Those recurring events.
that make you stop and go, what's going on here?
Maybe there's a message there.
Maybe there's a hidden connection waiting to be discovered.
It's a fascinating world out there.
It is. Thanks for joining us on another deep dive.